Decision, as Joe mentioned at the top, will come today over whether Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis will be disqualified from the Trump election interference case. Trump and several of his co-defendants have accused Willis of misconduct and financially benefiting from a romantic relationship she had with prosecutor Nathan Wade, whom she hired on the case. In a hearing last month, both Willis and Wade acknowledged that relationship, but insisted it started after Wade was hired. Meanwhile, in Florida, the judge in Donald Trump's classified documents case has denied one of the ex-president's requests to have the charges against him dismissed. Trump's legal team tried to argue the law on national security secrets is too vague. But Judge Aileen Cannon ruled hours after the hearing a dismissal over vagueness right now would be, quote, premature and better suited to be addressed later, quote, in connection with jury-instructed briefing. She did not rule yet on the other motion from Trump's team, which claimed the former president believed he was allowed to keep the documents as his personal records because of the Presidential Records Act, which we have said ad nauseum does not apply here. Judge Cannon appeared skeptical of that argument yesterday, saying at one point, it's difficult to see how this gets you to the dismissal of an indictment. And in New York, just days before Donald Trump was set to face his first criminal trial, we've learned the hush money case brought by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office likely now will be postponed. Trump's lawyers want to push the trial back by 90 days. In a new court filing yesterday, the DA's office said it does not oppose a brief delay, but asks that it not exceed 30 days. At issue is about 31,000 pages of additional records the Manhattan DA's office received this week from federal prosecutors in New York. Trump's legal team requested more time to review the material, and the DA's office responded, saying it would not oppose an adjournment. The judge presiding over the case has not yet ruled on a delay. The trial currently set to begin March 25th. That's a week from Monday. All right, with all that, let's bring in former litigator and MSNBC legal correspondent Lisa Rubin. Lisa, looks like another day. Another pop quiz for you. So much to cover here. Let's go back to the beginning with this announcement we're expecting sometime in the next few hours about whether or not Fani Willis will be disqualified as the prosecutor in the case down in Georgia. What do you expect to hear?
Willie, I really don't know. And I think a lot turns on two things. One, what is the legal standard that Judge McAfee applies to whether Fani Willis should be disqualified? Because that is contested. You have some people telling him, the DA's office most notably, that the standard is whether there is an actual conflict of interest that prejudices the defendants in their capacity as criminal defendants here, and not, for example, as voters in Fulton County who helped elect Fani Willis. The other standard, though, the one advanced by Steve Sadow and by Mike Roman's lawyer, Ashley Merchant, who started this whole thing, is that it's really about the appearance of impropriety. When there was oral argument on this, one of the things that the DA's office drilled down into was telling McAfee that while there is some case law that provides for the disqualification of elected officials on the basis of that appearance of impropriety, that's never been held to disqualify a prosecutor. You have to find an actual conflict to disqualify a prosecutor. So let's see whether he buys the DA's argument there or the folks on the other side. If he buys the defendant's argument, I think odds are that Fani Willis would be disqualified. But the other big issue here is how much additional evidence Scott McAfee decides is relevant to his decision. You'll remember that sort of at the last hour, everybody piled on with cell phone records and purported expert declarations, new declarations from the guy at the winery who remembered Willis and Wade, and from another prosecutor who had been in a conversation with Terrence Bradley where she alleged Fani Willis called on the phone and essentially said to Bradley, "They're snooping, don't talk." Whether McAfee takes any of that into consideration remains an open question. He hasn't publicly ruled on the admissibility or whether or not he thinks that that's relevant here. I think it could go either way. My sense is that Fani Willis holds on, but barely, and that whatever McAfee does in that respect, if he does allow her to stay on the case, still comes with a bunch of criticism for her and her special ADA, Nathan Wade.
So Lisa, let's break this down, actually, to what actually is relevant to this case and what is not relevant to this case. First of all, Fani Willis, I mean, the judgment she used is just absolutely atrocious. If there are ethical ramifications. You know, perhaps there should be, especially if she's lying. There definitely should be. She's going to have to answer to the voters for just this. Again, the most important case probably that's ever been tried in Georgia, and she has just turned it into an absolute clown show. I wanted to use another word, but it's early in the morning and some kids are eating their breakfast. All right, so we can all agree on that. I think everybody can agree that she has really, really messed this up. Okay, that's on one side of the ledger. But on the other side of the ledger is, does it in any way prejudice the defendant? And does it get in the way of Donald Trump having a fair trial and these other defendants having a fair trial? I don't see how it gets to that line. There are a lot of things the judge can do. The judge can say, Ms. Willis, I cannot even believe the horrific judgment you've shown. And Bradley, I mean, you point this guy. What are you doing? You know what? We're going to have to delay this trial. You're going to have to find somebody else to run your case. And I hope you don't have a personal relationship with them as well. I don't know if you can do that, Ms. Willis.
Nathan Wade.
But Nathan Wade. But push it to that side. It seems to me these are two totally separate things.
Yes.
And so I really don't understand why she would be disqualified. Ethics charges, yes, but just have her appoint somebody else to run the case.
Well, look, you know, when we talked, you guys were talking about in the earlier segment about the easiest ways to correct for the conspiracy theories going on over at Kensington Palace. This was a situation that could have been easily corrected, too. When these allegations were first floated, once Fani Willis and Nathan Wade admitted that they had a relationship, the right and maybe the helpful thing to do at that point would have been for Nathan Wade to step away from the case and for them to say, OK, we recognize that this was an error of judgment on the DA's part, but we're going to cure that now. Nathan Wade will no longer take part in the case. That's not what they did. But putting that aside, Judge McAfee has already made clear it doesn't matter if Nathan Wade was the worst lawyer in the world. She is entitled to appoint whoever she wants, so long as they have a bar card, a legal education, and are basically competent to stand up. You know, it's like one step beyond Weekend at Bernie's in terms of who she's allowed to appoint. The conflict issue here, and I'm going to be generous to the defendants, their allegation is by appointing someone with whom she was in a personal relationship, she financially benefited from that because in her payments to him, she knew that it was going to come back to her. That's what Trump has said in an interview recently, that they almost tried to inflate the size of the case, the number of defendants, the number of allegations, all to enlarge the size of the payments to Wade. The only problem with that is Fani Willis makes a decent salary on her own, and the number of dollars that they were able to tie back to her in terms of Nathan Wade's expenditures, while lavish in terms of how ordinary Americans spend their vacation money, isn't substantial enough to have, you know, a normal person says to themselves, would you really concoct this whole big scheme, this RICO conspiracy, in order to get yourself $10,000 of vacation benefits? I don't think so. I'm with Joe on this one.
We should note also that Judge McAfee did dismiss, Lisa, 6 of the charges in this case, but certainly some still very damaging ones exist for former President Trump.